Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. Gigabyte's AMD Radeon RX 460 4GB dedicated gaming graphics card. Unboxing and overview. Who should watch this video? Why should you care? In short, there's two groups of people who should watch this video. Group number one are esports gamers. Do you play games such as Overwatch, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, League of Legends, DOTA 2, Rocket League, those sorts of games? You will benefit from a dedicated graphics card versus using integrated graphics, but you don't have to spend a ton of money. $120. This card is a really good deal. They just had a price drop on these. $120 is a great price for this card. I'll talk more about that performance here in a minute. Furthermore, it's still capable of playing advanced games, the big budget AAA titles such as Battlefield 1, Grand Theft Auto 5, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Hitman, etc. I'll talk about that later in the video, but if you are a gamer that primarily plays esports titles, this is all the graphics card you need. You don't have to spend more money. $120, great deal. Group number two, the other group who should watch this video, is anybody who has a pre-built computer. This Dell is an example of such a computer, but HP, Lenovo, Asus, Acer, if you have a mini tower or mid tower computer from a large company and the computer did not originally come with any type of dedicated gaming graphics card, then the machine probably does not have the power supply for anything more powerful than this. There are ways to install more powerful cards, but it involves a lot more work and you have to get inside your computer and figure out what you have and use adapter cables or change power supplies. This graphics card will be powered by just the motherboard. There is no need for a PCI Express power connector. There's no need for a higher level 400 or 500 watt power supply. This will work on the 250 to 300 watt power supplies that come with most pre-built computers. Installing this could not be simpler. Take the side off your computer, locate the available graphics card slot that comes in most computers that look like this, install the card by inserting it in the slot, screw it into place if necessary, put the cover back in, plug your monitor into the video port on this graphics card, turn the computer on, download and install the latest drivers from AMD.com, and you're done. It will work as simple as that. That is so convenient compared to having to figure out, do I have the right power connectors? Do I have the right wattage of power supply? If you have a computer that comes in a mini tower case that looks like this, almost certainly you have enough power to run this card because this only needs 75 watts of power. That is a really good deal. So those are the two groups of people who should watch this video. This graphics card, in terms of performance for the dollar, is actually a really good deal. Now there are absolutely faster cards, but all the games I mentioned before, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Overwatch, League of Legends, Dota 2, Rocket League, 1080p, max detail, 60 plus frames per second, no issues whatsoever. Side note, if you are not subscribed to my channel, please do so by clicking the button beneath the video. It will give you notifications of upcoming videos. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe. I will be doing live game performance videos coming up on this card and other similar cards. I will also test the 2GB version of this card so you can see any performance difference. I'll do a side-by-side comparison in those games to let you know how well they play, and I will also be testing it in more advanced games. Grand Theft Auto 5, Battlefield 1, Mafia 3. That's a new game that just came out. I'll be testing that one as well, so you can see what kind of performance can I get for a $120 graphics card. Now, I mentioned that I will also be testing the 2GB version of the card. Let me be absolutely clear. Unless you are absolutely sure that you only want to play the esports titles I mentioned, I would buy the 4GB card. There's only a $20 difference between the 2GB and the 4GB version. The 4GB does not make any difference for Overwatch at 1080p. None. There will be zero performance difference between the 2GB and the 4GB card at 1080p in the esports titles. Mafia 3, Rise of the Tomb Raider, yeah, they want more VRAM. I would not buy a 2GB card if you want to play any of those type of games. And for $20, you gain the ability to play a little bit more graphically demanding titles, not at ultra detail, it won't play those, but it will play them at medium-ish detail, at acceptable performance. And again, those videos will be coming up. Be sure to subscribe. Now, let me talk a little bit more about power supplies in pre-built computers. Most of these computers come with anywhere between a 200 to 300 watt power supply. This card uses 75 watts. The i5 CPU in most of these computers uses less than 100 watts. Less than 100 watts for the CPU, 75 watts max for the graphics card. That's, let's call it 170 watts. Your hard drive usually uses less than 10. Your DVD doesn't use anything if you're not using it, and the motherboard uses maybe 10 or 15. So the total consumption is about 200 watts. So long as you have anything in the 200-ish watt range, there will be no issues. In fact, I will install this card in that machine. That is a 5-year-old computer. I've previously reviewed this computer. It's a Dell Optiplex 790, link in the description below. That is a 5-year-old computer, and it's a great candidate for installing this card. If you have a machine that's a couple of years old, this is a great card to install because those games are not overly demanding, and these computers can be had for a reasonable price. If you don't own one of these, $150, maybe less on eBay. There'll be a link to eBay below. True quad-core Intel i5 processor. It is a couple generations old, but for those kind of games, it's fine. This card will go in nicely and will play very nicely in such a machine. Let's take a look and see what comes in the box, shall we? It's a graphics card. I know it's exciting. In the fancier cards, as you spend more money, you get fancier boxes, but at the end of the day, it's a graphics card in a box. I do like the fact that it opens this way and it's protected in foam. Some of the other cards, looking at you NVIDIA, just come in bubble envelopes packed in cardboard. So I like all this foam. This is nice. We'll take the card out. It is protected by an anti-static bag. We'll take it out of the bag and take a look at the card. You will notice Gigabyte's Windforce cooler. There are 2 fans on here. This will, of course, run very quiet and very cool. This is not going to make any noise. It's going to be a very quiet, very cool card. If you look at the sides and the top, there is no 6-pin PCI Express power connector. This is an important point I mentioned before. Pre-built computers generally don't have a dedicated power connector for video cards. If you go with an RX 470, you need a 6 or an 8-pin connector. So this doesn't need one. Plug it in, takes 2 minutes to install, couldn't be easier. The back of this card is black. It's a straight black printed circuit board. The front is black with just some accents in orange. There are no LED lighting or any other accents, but again, $120 for a 4 GB modern graphics card. That's a really good deal. There's no plastic or anything else on here to take off. The only thing you have to remove is on the end of the card here. There are plugs just covering up the video ports. Let me talk about those video ports here briefly. You have a DisplayPort 1.4. What does that mean? 4K at 60 Hz. Yes, this video card will drive a 4K monitor at 60 Hz refresh rate. Will it game at 4K? Not really. It might do League of Legends at 4K. I might try it, but even that might be a bit rough. Here's the thing. Let's say you do Windows productivity. Let's say you want to browse the web on a nice big 4K monitor. You want to watch YouTube videos in 4K. This video is being filmed in 4K. You can absolutely watch YouTube videos in 4K on this graphics card perfectly. Game at 1080p. 1080p is exactly 25% of 4K. It's half the horizontal and half the vertical resolution. If you set your game to 1080p in full screen, it will upscale to the screen, to the 4K screen. Now, normally upscaling I'm not a fan of, except because it goes exactly pixel by pixel, it will be a perfectly sharp image. There will be no jaggies, no fuzzies from the upscaling because it's an exact 1-to-1 scale. In fact, it may look better on a 4K screen because it can anti-alias or interpolate in the upscaling with very little or no performance impact, and you'd have a very beautiful image, quite frankly. But the only reason it supports 4K is for running Windows at 4K, not gaming at 4K. HDMI 2.0. Why is that a big deal? Televisions. What if you have a 4K television, maybe in your living room or family room, and you want to play on your 4K TV? You can absolutely plug this HDMI port into a 4K TV that supports HDMI 2.0. You can use Windows at 4K, and if the text is too small, no worries. Go into the DPI scaling and display settings and set it to 200%. Everything on the screen will then look as if it's at 1080p, but be much, much sharper. So the icons will be bigger, the text will be readable. Set it to 200%, it'll be exactly like at 1080p. Now, again, you wouldn't game at 1080p, but you wouldn't game at 4K. But game at 1080p on your 4K television, it will look gorgeous. No worries, there's no problem with that. The final video port is a DVI-D display output. This does not support 4K. DVI is being depreciated and it's not being supported for the future. That's okay. But if you have a monitor that uses that for 1080p or 1440p resolution, the DVI port works just fine. Please note, AMD does not, and has not for several generations since the 200 series, does not support a VGA monitor plugged into the DVI port using an adapter. The circuitry on the chips are gone. If you have a VGA monitor and you've got an older, maybe 7000 series AMD card, and you were using one of the short DVI-I to VGA adapters, won't work, but no worries. For about $10, you can buy a DisplayPort to VGA active adapter off of Amazon or Newegg, and then you can plug your VGA monitor into that. It's not as good as the old one because the circuitry's gone, so the conversion's being done in the adapter rather than in the video card, but it's an option if you need VGA support. If your television or your monitor has DisplayPort or HDMI, use those. They're digital, perfect representation, use those ports. That's all that's on the back here. There are no other inputs or ports anywhere to be found on the card. There's no power connector. It's very lightweight. In terms of length, there's a protective cover on the bottom. It is a little bit longer than the printed circuit board itself. The PCI Express slot stops right here, and so it's about 2 inches longer than the actual PCI Express slot itself. There are RX 460 cards that are a bit shorter than this. This has 2 fans, and so it's a slightly longer card than some others. If you have an ITX case or a very, very small case and you're very limited in room, you may want to buy a different card that's shorter. However, this is currently the least expensive 4GB RX 460 on the market. If you've got the room for it, and a case such as this, a basic mini tower case from Dell, Acer, Asus, Lenovo, HP, should have room for this card, especially since there's no power cables that have to go into it. Watch my channel for an upcoming comparison between this card and the 2GB card, as well as this card and NVIDIA's new GeForce GTX 1050 and 1050 Ti cards. I've previously done those videos, so by all means check those out. But for $120, this is a good deal. How does it compare performance-wise with previous cards and NVIDIA cards? Let me talk about performance for a minute compared to other cards. Previous generation of cards, the R7 370 from AMD, the 300 series, is roughly equal in performance. So if you have an R7 370, this is not an upgrade. It's roughly about the same performance. What about the 200 series cards going back another generation? The 280 is roughly equal to this. It might be 5-ish% faster, but the 280, so basically it goes down a number with each generation, 280 to 370 to 460. That middle number drops down. That's roughly equal in performance. So if you have a 280 or 280X in your computer, a 460 is not an upgrade. A 470 would be, but that's a bigger card, more expensive card. What about NVIDIA? This card is roughly equal to the previous generation NVIDIA GeForce GTX 950. If you have a 950, this is not an upgrade. This is roughly equal in performance to a 950, and it's a little slower than a 960. It is, however, about 50% faster than a 750 Ti. So if you have an old 750 Ti, this is a nice performance boost over an old 750 Ti, especially since it has 4 gigs of RAM and the 750 Ti's only ever had 2 gigabytes. Going back previous generations before that, if you've got something like a 760 or 770, this isn't an upgrade. But if you've got something like in the 600 series, like a 660 or 650, then it's definitely an upgrade from those older NVIDIA cards. In terms of the current card, this is roughly equal in performance to the GTX 1050 non-Ti card, the 2 gigabyte card. The Ti, the 1050 Ti, is about 20 to 25% faster than this, but it costs more, about $30 more. So Do you want to pay 20% more money to get 20% more performance? Or do you want to save a little bit of money? That's totally a personal preference. Now, all these prices I'm mentioning are in the United States when I film this video. If you live overseas, if you live somewhere else in the world, your prices may be different. If you can buy a 1050 Ti for the same price as this, well, the 1050 Ti is faster. But if this is $50 less in your country than the 1050, then by all means buy this because it's a good card. I hope this was informative and helpful. By all means, please like this video if you like it. If you don't, remember to subscribe to my channel for the upcoming game performance videos on this card and others in comparisons with other cards. Questions and comments go in the question box below. And as always, check out my video description below. Links to Newegg, Amazon, and eBay. Link to my review on that computer. It's a really good deal. A link to this card specifically on Amazon and Newegg will be down there, as well as a list to all the 460 cards. I encourage you to take a look at them because this may or may not be the least expensive card when you watch this video. If you watch this video the day after I posted it, probably will be. If you watch this video in December, it probably won't be, and something else may catch your fancy. Please be aware, some of the RX 460s do require a 6-pin PCI Express power connector, some don't. The Sapphire Nitro RX 460, for example, does. The Gigabyte Windforce does not. So different cards have different requirements. Be sure to look specifically at your card that you're thinking of buying and make sure it will work in your machine in both size and power connector requirements before you buy. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.